we are here with the Cozy and Sweet Blissful Reading Group, and this evening we are discussing Julie Milo's book, Second Chance in Asheville. And I know Jen and I are both very excited about this novella. It was one of those that we were able to read in one day because it was so good. And it is our pleasure to welcome Julie herself, the author. So thank you for joining us, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
This evening, I'm coming to you from Orlando, Florida, and we have gorgeous weather. I think you can see behind me, my homeowners association has already put up the Christmas lights. So we are ready to go here in Central Florida. Jen, where are you coming from tonight?
So I'm coming from Columbia, South Carolina. Also very nice tonight. No Christmas lights in sight yet, though.
And how about you, Julie? Where are you talking to us from this evening?
I'm here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and the background behind me is actually the farm that Kevin's farm in the novella was based on in North Carolina. So that's not what's really behind me. I'm not in North Carolina, but I thought it would be fun to do that as a background tonight.
Excellent. We love that you're on theme, so thank you for that. And let's go ahead and jump right into your book. If you don't mind, Julie, would you just start out by telling all the viewers or people who are going to join us later on YouTube just a quick blurb? Here's what the book's about.
Yeah, blurbs are the worst. I hate blurbs, but writing them, I hate writing blurbs. So this is a second chance. Obviously, it's called Second Chance in Asheville, but so essentially, Ramona is going to celebrate her 30th birthday with her two best friends, and they're going to the mountains of North Carolina. They're going to Asheville, and they rent like a vacation home, and they get there and they're having a great time, and then a storm comes through, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And as a result of different things, she finds out that the vacation rental she's staying in is actually owned by her ex-boyfriend from college, Kevin. And it was kind of the way that things ended back then was, a little rough, and kind of neither of them ever got over the other. And so some circumstances kind of pushed them back together, with this coincidence of them happening to book a vacation rental on his farm, his family's farm.
Okay, thank you. Jen, do you want to start us off with a question?
Okay, so I know that this book was inspired by real life events, Julie. Okay,
Yeah.
so what all can you tell us about your experience in Asheville when Hurricane, or I guess it was Tropical Storm Helene, came through for you?
Yeah, definitely. So that's definitely where this book came from. I live in Florida. I'm used to hurricanes. It's a part of my everyday, not every day, but every year life, certainly. And last year, as so in September, my husband and I were planning we had been planning an anniversary trip to Asheville. We got a vacation rental, had the whole trip planned. And then Hurricane Helene was in the Gulf. And we live on the Gulf Coast of Florida. So, we were a little concerned as far as leaving our kids. We were like, I think it'll be fine. I don't think it'll be close enough to us. But, my dad was going to watch them, and he did watch them. But so my nerves were around leaving my kids when this hurricane was kind of going past. And of course, we knew what direction Helene was going. We were paying attention to that. But it was so unprecedented for a storm to stay that strong, that far north. We figured if Helene even made it to where we were going in North Carolina, it would just mean kind of a rainy day. And so we weren't very concerned about it. Like I said, my biggest concern was leaving my kids when a hurricane was going to kind of skirt past where we lived. But we decided to go for it anyway. We had everything booked. We were excited about the trip. So we drove up. It was Thursday when we drove up. And that night and Friday morning is when Helene came through the mountains of North Carolina. So we drove all day on Thursday. We got to our vacation rental. The vacation rental manager, I guess, was, saying, "Oh, power's so tricky here. If a storm comes through, you'll probably lose power." But, she said it kind of so it was well, it was typed, but it was so kind of nonchalant that still we weren't concerned about that, right? We're like, "Oh, okay, we get it. Your power's little. It's the mountains, right?" So when the power went out in the middle of the night, we didn't really think anything of it. We were kind of expecting that to happen. And the next day, still things seemed pretty normal. There was a big tree down, just like in the book. And basically, the events right after the storm comes through in the book mirror my husband and my experience. We weren't in the center of Asheville. We were kind of on the outskirts. So we were not in an area that flooded. We did see some flooding, but we were not in an area that flooded. There were a lot of trees down, a lot of power lines down where we were. Mid-morning, the water stopped working, just like in the novella, but it wasn't first thing. We both took showers in the morning. Everything was normal, it was only kind of when the water stopped working that we were like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And we sat out in our car and listened to the radio, because that was the only radio we had. And we just kept thinking it was so ironic because we had like a whole hurricane kit at our house at home, right? With like power banks and, everything we would need for this situation. And we just, it was at home in Florida. So, and truly in those days after the storm, there was no way out of Asheville. The two major highways were both blocked. They were impassable. So we were stuck, and it was that was kind of and we had no way to communicate with anybody. Cell phones were not working at all, except for the magical McDonald's parking lot, just like in the novella. There was a real magical McDonald's parking lot that people would congregate at to get a signal. And so it was, I was trying to make sure my kids knew we were okay. I was trying to, communicate. We were trying to find information. It was so hard to get any information. It was astounding to me, especially being from Florida, where we know what to do in a hurricane, that the radios were normal programming, like the radio stations, like nobody, like it took us the second day before we found a radio station that was just talking about what was going on in Asheville. They were all on like their normal programming, and we're just trying to find out what roads are open, right? What's going on? What can we leave? We want to leave. We felt we didn't have supplies. We had just gotten in that Thursday night. We didn't even get to do anything in Asheville before the storm came through. And we didn't have supplies. We had finished all of our road snacks already. And, I felt very grateful that we were staying at a vacation rental owned by a family, and they were sort of on property. They had like their big houses, just like in the book. and they, fed us, and took care of us until we could leave, which was very hospitable. And we're not usually vacation rental people. It was a lot of things kind of, came together for us to have the experience that we had. The mostly, it wasn't as bad as it could have been for our experience. Obviously, it was for a lot of people a terrible experience. We were not vacation rental people, and the hotel we had looked at first was right in the middle of where all the flooding ended up being. And it was like $100 cheaper a night to stay in the vacation rental. So we were like, well, let's do a vacation rental, and that wouldn't have normally happened, that we would have made that choice. And we probably would have been okay in that hotel because I'm sure we would have been on a higher floor, but our car would have been destroyed, right? And sitting in that parking lot. So it could have been a lot worse for us, for sure, like it was for a lot of the people who live there. But, we wanted to leave because part of it was, this isn't our community, right? Like this isn't our community. And we have no way to help this community that we're in. And we were like, us being here is actually taking away from the people in this community who need the resources, right? The best thing that we can do is leave so that they can use their resources for their community and not, for us. So, it was quite an experience. It obviously stuck in my head, and was, writing this novella was part of the way that I processed some of those emotions, and turned it into a happily ever after. So
At what point when you were writing, because you had this very unique experience and you built it into the novella, but at what
Yeah.
point did you decide, you know what, I want to make this a second chance forced proximity romance as opposed to just an adventure or something of that sort?
Right. Well, I mean, romance is what I write and mostly what I read. So it was always going to be a romance. and and I think I was thinking because we weren't in dire straits where we were, it was just we had like 2 days of kind of chilling and reading and hanging out and playing cards. My husband and I, who fortunately like each other very much, my husband and I very much like each other and enjoy each other's company. So we didn't mind that we were sort of stuck together. But it did make me think, right? Like, well, what if people were stuck together who are not a married couple, right? Like, what if they're exes? What kind of tension would that create? What would that look like? And after we left, after we were able to leave, Sunday is the first day we were able to leave, where the roads reopened and we were able to leave Asheville. And so we drove as far as North Florida on Sunday, and we stayed in a hotel before we headed all the way home the next day. But in the hotel that night, first of all, it was just glorious to take a shower in that hotel room. But I didn't sleep well because I was still really stressed and holding that stress from that experience. And parts of the story kind of came to me as I was not sleeping. And then obviously I expanded it into more. But I had this, it was kind of this idea of what if people who don't want to be stuck together are stuck together?
Okay.
So I was going to ask you, Julie, because different people deal differently with a situation like this. Like in your book, you have different characters reacting in different ways.
Yes.
So I was curious about how you reacted in your experience. Basically, you were chilling with your husband, so I take it, things were fine. You were happy to chill, but were you getting like antsy, especially with your kids at home? Like how did you feel in all of that?
Yeah, great question. So I think my feelings, my reactions were most similar to Beth in the book. Beth is the friend who has children, right? And she's so just, I need to talk to my children. I need to talk to my children. And I was very much like that. I wanted to make sure that they knew I was okay, that we were okay. And so it was kind of maybe I was a mixture of Ramona and Beth, because Ramona was very kind of practical minded. And as Katie, who 100%, Katie was my husband, 100%. Um, as far as his reactions, my husband's like, I don't care, let's just leave, let's just leave. And I said, well, hold on, we can't just leave because we have less than half a tank of gas. We don't know when there's more gas to buy, and we don't want to get stuck on the side of the road somewhere. We don't know what's open to leave. And so I was kind of, Ramona had that aspect to her, and Beth had the aspect of like desperate to get in contact with her kids. So I was a mixture of those two. And my husband, I mean, Katie was 100% based on my husband.
Now, Jen and I always like to ask this question, so maybe I'm stealing this one from Jen. But if you were to have somebody buy this movie and the casting was done in your head, who did you envision for your main characters?
That's a terrible question for me because I really, I really don't think about that. I feel like, the point of actors and actresses is that they can adapt to a role. So I don't know that I pictured anybody in particular, as far as that I could think of an actor or an actress to play them. Which is a terrible answer, but I just don't know.
I think
I
it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask you then about one of my favorite character quirks. I
Okay.
loved that Kevin would constantly fidget with his
With
ball
his
cap and
hat.
turn it
Yeah.
around and yank it back to the front. Is that inspired by someone in real life, or did you just think that would be so cute and we needed a hero who did that?
Well, absolutely. The backwards baseball cap is always a winner, right? Everybody loves the backward baseball cap on the heroes. So that was intentional. And then this sounds so weird, but that's just that Kevin just did that. I didn't know he was going to do that until he did it. And that happens to me sometimes. There's a lot that I plan out, a lot that I do, and then sometimes I'll be writing and I'll be like, okay, that happened. I guess we'll go with that. And I didn't necessarily know beforehand that that character was going to express himself that way, or that something was going to happen that way. And that was kind of Kevin with the hat. I knew I wanted him to have a hat. He's a casual guy. He's out there working on his farm, so he's got his ball cap on. Plus, it's a very special ball cap, right? That Ramona gifted him back in the day. And just the fidget of flipping it forward and backward, it just kind of happened. It's just how he wanted to express himself as a character. I don't know.
I loved it. Loved it.
Yes, it was very cute. It made Kevin King who he is.
That's right.
Yeah, so I would assume that for you, Julie, one of the hardest parts of the book to write was the scene where the ladies wake up in Asheville and they realize there's, devastation eventually. Was that the hardest part, the hardest scene of writing this book for you, or was there a different scene or a different part that was hard?
Actually, those scenes, I mean, maybe, I don't know, sorry, I don't know if you can hear my dog shaking over here. She's being loud. I don't know, it was maybe a little bit, it was cathartic because I was, I experienced those things, right? And so I'm getting them out there, and it helped me to kind of put them away, put those emotions away. Once I had those things written down, I could move on from those emotions. That was cathartic. So in a way, it was easy to write because it was freeing, right? To not have those emotions weighing on me anymore. What was more difficult to write was kind of everything that came after, because I went from very kind of basing things on something that actually happened, and I knew what happened, so it was easy to know what was going to happen and what to write. And then once Ramona leaves and goes home, I was like, well, what's next for this couple, right? Like, what's going to happen now that they're trying to do the long distance thing? How is this going to work? So it was actually more the second half that was a little bit harder to write because there wasn't a clear roadmap really anymore at that point. And I had to figure out, what are they going to do? This tension of now we're long distance, who's gonna, something's got to give. And what is that going to be?
When you're talking about plotting and planning and having the roadmap, do you plot ahead? Like, when you were getting ready for this, you said, okay, this is what I've got and it's going to be a novella, or are you more of the fly by the seat of your pants kind of person?
I am not a pantser. I am a plotter. However, I don't plot every detail. I'll plot kind of broad strokes. And then, like I said, when I start writing, things might happen that I didn't anticipate were going to happen. And so I just kind of roll with it and let that happen. What was the other part to that question? Was there?
No, you got it. That was good.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah,
I think there's something else I was going to say with how you asked it. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, I knew broad strokes what was going to happen, and then as I was writing, things kind of came out that I didn't know were going to happen necessarily, yeah, and I revised as needed, I guess. But
So let's imagine we're back in Asheville with
okay.
Ramona and Kevin. What are they doing now? I know that this is just a little novella, but if we imagine like the sequel or a fuller book, what would their lives be like now?
Yeah, well, we kind of left them at the end of the book and in the epilogue. They got married in the epilogue at the farm. Obviously, Ramona at the end of the book moved to North Carolina. She was in Atlanta, working her PR advertising sort of a job that she didn't really like. So, we saw in the book that Ramona loves telling stories through video, and she wasn't having the opportunity to do that. She was making commercials and things like that, but she wasn't getting to tell the stories that she wanted to tell. So when she moved to Asheville to be with Kevin, she started her own consulting business with being able to do videos. And sort of the idea was there's a lot of eyes. It was kind of good timing, right? There's a lot of eyes on Asheville in the wake of this, people wanting to help small businesses and people in Asheville. And so she was doing a lot of um, pro bono work to get started, right? Kind of volunteering her time to create videos to help some of the businesses that suffered during the tragedy to get back on their feet. So I think that really paid dividends for her. I think that was, not only a nice thing to do and a very Ramona thing to do, but I think it also brought her a lot of business and got her her little agency really on its feet. And I think she was able to hire some other employees to help her with it, and live there on the farm with her husband, who's loving his horses and doing his thing. So I definitely see kids in their future. I think that's something they both want. And I think it's nice that they live with family close by, right? They have the big house now, but they have Kevin's parents and Kevin's aunt nearby, so they can help with the kids. And so I think I think they're a happy family, happy extended family living on their farm.
I was hoping you would say that there's babies on the farm and human babies, not animal babies, because that's what
Both,
I envision
both.
too.
Yeah, that's definitely something I think that they want, and just what a beautiful place to grow up to for those kids, to be running around. I mean, look behind me here, right? This is beautiful. A lot of running around space.
I have to tell you, I really also loved a plot point where you had when they broke up in school. It was more of just a it just sort of happened, where
Right.
it was like the phone issue and then no
Right.
calling here, and well, you didn't call, so I didn't call. I thought that was very, very natural. And I know, if it were a film or something, someone would expect a much bigger right, a much bigger blow up. But when you're reading it in the book, it makes so much sense, because how many of us have relationships or friendships or whatever, and as soon as you don't live near that person anymore, it just
Right.
kind of gradually recedes. So I wanted to compliment you on getting that just right.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because I think, with second chance, that's a hard thing. I hear that from readers a lot, right? Where they're like, oh, I don't like second chance because if there was a good reason for them to break up in the first place, why should they get back together, right? Or it's got to be something that um, you want them to get back together, right? Like
Mhm.
nothing that was broke them up in the first place, cheating or something like that. Is hard to forgive, I think, for readers. And so you want the reader to want them to be back together. And so it's got to be a reason for breaking up that doesn't vilify anybody, basically.
So, Julie, what are you working on right now?
Right now, I am working on Second Chance in Asheville is. Oh, I think I remember earlier the other part I was going to say when Mindy was asking about my plotting. Did I intend for it to be a novella? And the answer to that was yes. I when I came up with the idea for this, so when I came up with the idea after I was in Asheville, so I had finished writing my debut novel, which is Love in the Stacks, and that one came out January of this year. I had already finished writing that. I had started writing the second book in my Delaney's in Love series, Love in the Lab, which came out this past August. And I actually stopped writing Love in the Lab to write Second Chance in Asheville. And and it was the story that I needed to write right at that time. So I stopped and I started writing Second Chance in Nashville. And I always intended for it to be a novella. It's a kind of a longer novella. It's just barely a novella. I think usually what I hear is novella is 40,000 words or less. And I think it's like 38,000 or something. It's just barely short enough to be a novella. And I actually had to cut some words to get it down because I really wanted it to be a novella. But I wrote it for it to be specifically to be exclusive giveaway for my newsletter subscribers, right? And so I wanted to have something to give to my newsletter subscribers to kind of thank them for subscribing to my newsletter. So that was a big part of it. So anyway, so I wrote Love in the Stacks before Second Chance in Asheville. And then when I finished Second Chance in Asheville, I started writing Love in the Lab again. And that, as I said, published in August. That's my newest release. And now I'm writing the third book in my Delaney's in Love series called Love at the Lake. So the Delaney's in Love series centers around three sisters, the Delaney sisters. Love in the Stacks is about Nicole, who's the middle sister, and she lives in Florida. She's a college librarian. So Love in the Stacks is her story. And then the oldest sister, Molly, is a scientist in New Orleans. And so Love in the Lab is her story. And Love at the Lake is the youngest sister, Olivia's story. So I'm having a lot of fun writing Olivia. It's a different, I had a book set in a library, which I'm very familiar with. My full-time career is an academic librarian, so I'm very familiar with that world. And then I wrote a book that's centered around a science lab, at a university, which was slightly more out of my wheelhouse. And this one is set at a summer camp, a kid's summer camp. This is 100% a summer book. It'll be publishing in May, because it's a summer book, and it's a lot of fun. Olivia is a character that is not like me at all, and that's been really fun to do. It's been challenging in some ways. I've definitely, as I'm going through, I'll catch myself writing Olivia reacting to something the way I would react to something, and not the way she would react to something, and I'll have to kind of edit that and be like, no, that's not Olivia, right? So it's a lot of fun. I'm most of the way through writing that. My goal is to finish writing it by the end of the year for it to come out in May. And then I've got several more projects in mind to start after that. So a lot of inspiration, a lot of ideas that I've got kind of on my list to work on.
Okay. What about, I was, kind of checking out your social media the other day, and I saw, or maybe it was in your newsletter, I can't remember, but anyway, news about you. You're going on an Alaskan cruise
I am.
that's for romance readers. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes. Yeah. So it's called Happily Ever Aft. And it's what I'm most excited about. No, I'm super excited to be going as an author. To me, that's like really exciting. When they announced it, I kind of reached out and I said, nobody knows who I am, but could I come as an author, and they said, sure. And I said, okay, I'm not going to be like drawing people in or anything. And they were like, that's okay. They don't need me to draw people in because the two headliners are Jenny Proctor and Emma St. Clair. Right. So that's going to get people going on this cruise. So yes, next July, the Happily Ever Aft cruise, it's an Alaskan cruise. And it's, I don't know, like a author reader experience on a cruise. So there's readers going, there's authors going, all sweet romance authors, and the readers who love to read sweet romance. And I'm one of the authors, but I'm not really involved in planning it, so I don't know what all the plans are. But I think a lot of fun things, a lot of opportunities for readers and authors to mingle and to talk. And my husband's coming with me without the kids. So hopefully this will be a better experience than the last time my husband and I went somewhere without our kids. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I've always kind of wanted to do an Alaskan cruise, and I never have. I've done warm weather cruises, but I've never done a cold weather cruise. And it gives me kind of Titanic vibes, but that's okay. I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it'll be fun. Even if the author reader piece wasn't involved, this would be super fun, right? And so I think that really adds a layer to it, that not only will I be on this amazing cruise, seeing amazing sights, I'll get to talk to readers, and I'll get to talk to some of the authors that I love to read. So I'm like half writer, half reader on this cruise, where I'm fangirling a little bit, but I'm also nobody's fangirling over me, but maybe, they like my work and they want to know more.
Mindy, I think we need to go on this cruise just to go, but also we would fangirl over you, Julie.
Oh, thank you. Somebody, my husband will. Nobody else will. My husband.
Yeah. And I just have to know, have you been back to Asheville since Helene?
I have not. I am willing to go. There's still a ton of stuff I want to see. As I said, my husband is Katie. He refuses. He will not go back. He was very much stupid mountains. I'm never going back there. They trap you, these mountains, and then you can never leave. And he was very dramatic. So my sister-in-law said that she would go with me if I want to go back, though.
So did you ever get to see Biltmore?
No. We were supposed to go the Friday, and they emailed, just like happened in the book, right? They emailed and they were like, "We're gonna have bad weather. We're gonna reopen on Saturday." They did not reopen on Saturday, right? But even they thought they were going to reopen on Saturday. So we, even when our Friday stuff was canceled, we rebooked the reservations for Saturday. And yeah, we never got to see anything except for the neighborhood around where we were staying. So we saw what's behind me, which is beautiful view. It was lovely. We walked around the neighborhood there, saw a lot of down trees and down power lines and family homes and things like that. But that's about what we saw. The itinerary we were going to do, all the activities I was going to do with my husband, that's what Ramona and Beth and Katie do those first few days that they're there. So I still got to use my itinerary.
That's good. Now I have one more question. Jen, do you have any more questions? You think
No, I'm good to go. Go
you're
ahead.
good? Okay, so my last question is for people who are aspiring authors and they're thinking about writing a story. Can you give them maybe just like a quick tip? Try this, or this works for you, something like that.
Honestly, I would say the biggest thing is read a lot. I think by reading the in the genre that you want to write in, right? So in my case, sweet romances, sweet romantic comedies, and sweet romances. I think reading a ton in that genre has helped me to know the beats. I know how it should be written because I'm reading so much. It also gives me a chance to, I like this, I don't like this, and I think that's a really critical piece is doing a lot of reading in the genre that you want to write in, and also use a good editor would be my other piece of advice.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining Jen and I tonight. We are so in love with Ramona and Kevin. It was such a fun book, such a great quick read. And I mean, even just the cover, you look at it and it's gorgeous for the fall. So it was
Very pretty
perfect
cover, yeah.
timing. We appreciate you sharing it with us.
Thank
For
you.
For any of our viewers out there, if you've got any questions for Julie, please feel free to drop them in the comment box below. She will come back and answer them later, or Jen and I can answer them later, whatever the question might be. And until we meet again, please keep reading those sweet romances and those cozy mystery stories because we love discussing them with you.